Hi, my name is Niina and you're listening Together Through the Storms podcast. Welcome to the journey with me. I would like to begin by acknowledging traditional owners of the land where I'm recording this episode today, which is the Wurrung country. I would like to pay my respects to the eldest past and present and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening today.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in on Together Through the Storms podcast. My name is Niina, and I hope you've had a fantastic weekend and you feel ready for the new week. Today's episode will discuss how to drive change. But before we get to the topic of the day, I would just like to share something really exciting with you. So I have been creating a little guide for you guys in the background. So based on the little poll I did on my Instagram, it turned out that majority of my followers were hoping for some strategies to support communication with their child who may have limited language skills. And as you may already realize, this is such a passion topic area for me personally, as I feel that our main challenges with my girls are currently heavily around the communication. We have had to be very creative over the years regarding communication with my girls, and I have been able to use a lot of my knowledge as special education teacher when thinking about adjustments that supports my girls. Both of my girls get extremely frustrated when I can't understand them. Previous example is from this morning. So both of them were having several meltdowns over misunderstandings, over situations where I wasn't able to understand what they were saying. And although I have to say I try my hardest to understand them and also explain to them what's going on, and if one way doesn't work, then I try another way, but yet still we come across situations where we don't always understand each other. And that is very frustrating for everyone involved. Not being understood makes my girls feel very big emotions and leave me feeling super helpless. Luckily, this doesn't happen too often, as I have learned from quite small cues to understand what the girls are talking about and model the language back to them. Communication in general is far from being simple at our household, and it takes incredible amount of energy to be so well tuned in with my girls that I know from their limited communication attempts what they mean or what they want. So when in my free guide that I made for you guys talk about communication tips, I speak from both lived experience and professional knowledge as a special education teacher. This is also a topic for one of my future episodes where I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into communication and the challenges that may bring. But now I have great news for you. I am sharing this free guide with you. It's called Communication Tips for Connecting with Your Child. To access this completely free guide, I am inviting you to join my community. I will be sharing my community letter with you every fortnight. I share the insights of my most recent podcast episodes. I provide a practical strategy that may be helpful when navigating the everyday life with a child with additional needs or disabilities. And I will also share a simple self-care strategy that allows you to invite some calm into the chaos. If joining this community and accessing this community letter is something that you're interested, please check the episode description as I have added the straight link there. So you can go click and join and become part of my community. I can't wait to connect with you. You can also find the link from my Instagram bio. Now, today's topic is change and how to drive change. In one of my previous solo episodes, I discussed advocacy, and that was a lead up to this episode. So if you haven't yet listened to my previous one, episode 8 about advocacy, I would strongly recommend to go and listen to that episode first, because then I feel like this might make more sense to you. As parents for a child or children with additional needs or disabilities, there are several spaces where we might recognize the need for change. That change could, for example, mean more inclusive practice, better adjustments, better support, better attitudes, and more inclusive mindsets and strategies. And the list goes on. I hope that this episode will provide you some new thoughts about change and how to drive it within the communities where you are involved with your child. Let's go into the episode. As always in my solo episodes, it's time to start with a quote. Today's quote comes from Mother Teresa herself, and this is how it goes. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. As I previously reflected on my episode about advocacy, this can often feel like the loneliest road to be on. And I don't know about you, but my personality can't really handle slow and steady, as I'm kind of more of a make it all happen straight away kind of person. But one thing I've had to learn on this journey, that change is slow. It takes time, and we just have to accept it. My favorite expression is that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And that summarizes it so well. Lots of my very good friends have recently started running. And I used to run in my past life, but that was a way long time ago. I still remember, though, the awful feeling when you started your run with too fast pace. It's the same with change. If we want to see change, we may have a goal in mind, but to reach that goal, we have to accept and celebrate small wins on our way to the big goal. Because otherwise we feel like we won't make it and stop running for good. Something that I have learned through my professional journey as well as through my journey with my girls is that advocacy often includes expectations for a change. And change is hard, and change causes resistance. Next, I'm going to identify some basic steps that might help you to advocate and drive change, whether it's educational settings, within the extended family and friends, or another space. Firstly, explain the need for the change, the why. The more you can make people experience and feel the need for the change themselves, the easier it will be to have ownership over the change. Be creative. Try to think of practical ways how to demonstrate the need for the change. Try to make people emotionally connected. Role play can be a powerful strategy. For example, if your child is in a wheelchair, could you potentially get people involved to do activities while sitting on a chair? If your child is vision impaired, could you use blindfolds to get people involved to experience how certain things feel like without being able to see? If your child is deaf or hard of hearing, could you stimulate the loss of hearing by using earplugs and earmuffs? And then afterwards, talk about the experience. How did the people involved feel like? What did they notice? If it's not possible to physically role play and demonstrate the disability of your child, another powerful strategy is to make people involved to do it by imagining themselves into the position of your child. You may do a lead up by describing how they are like, what's happening to them in certain situations, and how they're feeling and then make people involved think how those situations may feel like, why they are hard, and what kind of supports might be helpful. One of my favorite quotes is, "People don't know what they don't know." And that's so true. It's easy to think that people don't want to make change because they are against it, or judge people that are not keen to implement change. But often the barrier might be the lack of knowledge, lack of experience. If we can identify what the barrier may be and then try to support that, for example, connecting with professional learning or making them feel more emotionally involved, we may have better outcome in trying to drive change. If we can come up with creative ideas of how to make people feel involved and how to make them have some level of personal connection to your child and their additional needs or disability, that might actually become a game changer. This way, people involved are more likely to recognize the need for the change and help you to drive the change. What helped me to shift my mindset in terms of advocacy was learning about change adaptation curve. Now, this sounds very complicated. I will try to explain it to you to the best of my ability. I will share an image with you, which you can see if you're watching this as a video version. If you're listening to this episode, you can also find that image from my social media on Together Through the Storms. But basically, the idea is that if you think of a setting, let's say educational setting or healthcare professionals or your family and friends. So if you think of all the people in that specific setting, that's 100%, right? There are a group of people who are called innovators, and they are people who make change happen actively. Now, that is a relatively small group that includes only 2.5% of the people from that 100%. So a very small group of people, but don't forget, they make change happen actively. Then there's a little bit larger group that follows. That is a group of people who are called early adapters. They are very happy to follow the innovators in making change. This group is 13.5% of that 100%. So a little bit larger group, and they are happy to follow the innovators in making change. And these two groups are your people. When we're advocating, if we focus our energy on the people who are reluctant towards change and resist, we are less likely to be able to implement change. Instead, we get frustrated, we feel exhausted, we feel like we're not moving that mountain anywhere. But if instead we focus on those very powerful people, those innovators and early adapters, small group of people, but significant enough to implement change, we are starting to see movement of change, which will continue to spread into those groups that are more reluctant and more resistant. And suddenly we have bigger group of people behind us. So often change is slow and gradual, and you just need the right people in your corner. Now, the third step in creating change is communication. And I can understand that this is easier said than done. However, the key to change is regular communication. At the same time, you also have to be very mindful and acceptive around what you can and cannot control. Maybe think, how could you organize check-in meetings? Or how could you share updates and resources? If we're talking about extended family and friends, Would there be a chance to create a safe space, such as WhatsApp group or Messenger group, where you could share these updates, resources, information, link, and people could ask some questions? It's all about being creative, and sometimes it takes a lot of work, but once you have the system going, advocacy and sharing information becomes so much easier. The last step is to be prepared for resistance and don't let it defeat you. Just keep going. Just remember, you don't need every single person to be on board to create change. Let the change spread from those who are motivated and eager to make change. Also, make sure you choose your battles. I feel like this has been such a huge learning for myself in order to protect my energy when advocating. Not every single battle is yours. Thank you for listening to today's episode on Together Through the Storms podcast. As always, if you have any feedback or comments, please send them on my Instagram account. And if you're interested in joining my community and receiving a community letter every fortnight and access to free guide communication tips for connecting with your child, go to the episode description. You can find the straight link there. You can also find the link from my Instagram bio. I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.